What's up, everybody? I'm Simon Sabro, and today we're going to be doing a manga review for Satoshi Kon's Opus. So, before we get into that, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Simon Sabro YT. Link for that will always be down in the description. Also, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss an upload, all that good stuff. Also, comment down if you've read Opus. Do you have like a favorite work by Satoshi Kon? Anything like that whatsoever. But with all that out the way, let's just jump right into it. All right, so real quick, do want to say I did like pretty much like just finished reading this, and I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of interesting. Let's talk about it. And it'll be in the title because I'm mostly like impressed with the ending as well as like the overall just concept of the story. So spoilers, do be warned. And I know like at the beginning I did ask the question of like other Satoshi Kon's works, like off the top of my head. Should be Seraphim, Perfect Blue, Paprika, Paranoia Agent, and there's probably a good bit more. And to be fair, this right here is actually my like introduction to Satoshi Kon. I've never seen Perfect Blue. I've been meaning to watch like the anime for Paranoia Agent for like years. Just kind of never got around to it. So this is like my first Satoshi Kon work that I've like ever took in, I guess. Just wanted to throw that out there because I'm not like I can't say that I'm familiar with his style of writing because this is my first work. So once again, if you do have like a favorite work by Satoshi Kon or maybe one you'd recommend to me, definitely go ahead comment that down below because after this one I was like genuinely impressed, honestly. But moving on to kind of get into it, like I said, there will be spoilers if you haven't read it. I'm gonna start by talking about like the beginning and middle, and then eventually I'm gonna get to the ending because that's like the main thing that I want to talk about because it literally like blew me away. When I read it, I was like, damn, okay, cool. Um, so Opus. Here, let me just give the little close-ups, kind of like I always do. Um, and this is a series that I've been meaning to pick up for a really long time. I did buy it, I want to say in my December haul for last year. I could be wrong, but I forgot who I first seen like with this in their collection, and I was like, huh. And it was like on my list for like 2 3 years, and I saw it. I was like, you know what? Let me get it. um, so I don't think it's out of print. I think when I first was introduced to it, it might have been like out of print or like just really out of stock. But I did manage to finally get my hands on it, and it was worth it. Honestly, it was worth it. But to kind of get into the story, I will show the back of the book one more time, just because it might explain it way better than I kind of ever will. But long story short, it's about this mangaka. Um, Name I really don't remember. Nagai. There we go. Nagai. And I'm probably gonna just call him mangaka for like the whole thing because I'm really bad with characters' names. Um, but he's writing the story of okay. So there's Satoshi Kon who's writing Opus, which is this book, and then within this book there's Nagai who's writing this book called Resonance. So it's a little, the way I'm gonna explain it might get really muddy really quickly, and I do apologize for that. Because there's plenty of like, I don't even know if I can call it fourth wall breaks or if it's like something entirely different, but a lot of it's just weird, honestly. But the start of the manga blew me away as well, honestly. So it starts out with a couple of color pages here. So these are like the first two pages you see. Not sure how like readable that is for you, but I was reading this and I was like, okay. Just as like a little side note, I pretty much never read the backs of books. I kind of just go into the book blind. So I was like, okay, this is about to be like some kind of action manga or something. And so like that's what I was going into, like just off of the first page. I was like, this is gonna be like, some interesting action manga. And then we turn to the next page, and then I'm like, whoa, this looks really good. And I'm like, okay, this it's going cool. But I'm sitting here while I'm reading it. I'm like, I'm noticing the little parts on the side, and I'm just like, okay, let me flip it like this in case if you want to read it. But I'm like, okay, that's interesting, you know. I just thought it was like, you know, just part of the book. And then boom, we turn in pages, and I'm just like, interesting. And I'm like, this, am I at the end of the book kind of thing? I was like, because the book, like I said, this year, these first pages are covering the book within Opus called Resonance. And it's at like the climax of Resonance. So I'm saying, I'm like, did I start on the wrong side of the book? Like, what did I do wrong? Was this like a sequel? Was this volume 2 before volume 1? Like, I was so confused, but I was here for it. And then, not sure how well I can show this, but like on the side here, then it says volumes 1 through 8 of Resonance, blah blah, and I'm like, okay. And then we flip to the next page, and then it reveals that like it goes to this kind of like sketch kind of thing, and it shows that there's this guy who's the guy who's working on his book Resonance, and he's like trying to figure out how he wants to get the ending. And so what he decides on, so in the story of Resonance, there's 3 important characters. There's the Mask, who's the main antagonist. Not exactly sure what their goals were. My brain tends to like forget information real quickly when I'm reading, as you can tell like how bad I am with names. There's also Satoko, who is the main protagonist of Resonance, who, from what I could gather, has like the ability to like read minds and just telepathy kind of, or psychic abilities would be more accurate. And then there's a character named Lin, who is revealed to be like the fan favorite character within the series. Like I said, this might get very muddy the way I'm gonna explain this. And so the way the author envisions the ending of the series is that the Mask and Lin have like this epic battle, and they trade, and both of them kind of, you know, lose their life in the battle. We'll go with that. And it you know, sounds like a solid story. So Lin is like the side character to Satoko, but like one of the main characters. Really bad at explaining this, I'm sorry. It's like 4 in the morning for me right now. But yeah, so I'm like, okay, cool. This seems like it could be an interesting story. Where is this going? But here's where it gets way better. And I feel like I'm spending a little too much time on this beginning segment. I'm just really excited to talk about it, honestly. Okay, so he's drawn the sketch, boom, boom, boom. And then this kind of happens, a very interesting thing. And it's that Lin kind of comes to life and is like, hey, I don't agree with the way that you want to end the story. And so Lin like steals the manga, like the manga sketch, so that that ending won't come true, because Lin, I guess, becomes sentient, maybe that's the right word, and doesn't want to die on the whim of their creator. It's a very interesting concept just from that. And that's like the first couple of pages. That's like all of this right here. And I was like, this is a banger. I was like, I don't know how this is gonna end, but this is a banger right here. Like, I just knew it just from that. It was such a interesting premise and like concept to start off with. And I don't, off the top of my head, I don't think I've seen anything else kind of like that before. But it was impressive, honestly. There's like a little feather kind of flying around. I don't know if y'all saw it on the camera, but I was like, okay, cool. So then we keep going, and so what happens now is the mangaka and the guy kind of also gets trapped in the manga of Resonance, and he meets Satoko up here at the top. I want to say left-hand side for you guys. I'm not sure if it'll be flipped or not, but my left-hand side. He meets Satoko, and he becomes a part of the story, and he's like, from his point of view, he's very confused, because it's like, yo, I was just working on the story. How am I now in the story? Like, how does that even happen, right? And blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to give like a whole page by page by page, but he ends up like playing major points into the story. And there's times he came back to the real world, but like because that manga sketch of the ending was still stolen by Lin, it caused like a writer's block. So he wasn't able to like redraw it, he wasn't able to create a new ending or anything. It was just writer's block. Okay. Which sounds familiar to something. I can't right now, it's not clicking with me. And speaking of which, if there are any other manga that you know that have like a similar concept to this, comment that down below. I'm honestly very curious because I've never seen anything like this before. I think like, yeah, I don't think I've seen anything like this before. But moving on. So Nagai kind of becomes like coveted as the god in within Resonance because everyone's like all the characters of Resonance are like, yo, this guy, he knows everything about me even though we just met. He sees the future, like he knows literally everything. Anything he draws within Resonance comes out of the pages, I guess. It's hard to describe, but he could create anything within Resonance basically because he is the mangaka. Okay, boom. And so a lot goes down. The mask gets jealous because once again, the mask being like the main antagonist kind of gets, I don't know if jealous is the right word, but kind of feels inferior because I guess their goal was like some type of world domination takeover thing. So like for them to realize that they're just a character within a story and there's someone bigger than them really like bothered them the wrong way. And so I feel like my like thoughts are very like all over the place. So I'm sorry if you are like managing to keep up with the way I'm explaining this. Thank you very much. You're the GOAT, because I feel like if I were watching this, I might have a hard time kind of interpreting everything I'm saying. But I'm a kind of not gonna lie. My recording is about like 10 minutes in, give or take. So I think I'm gonna skip to the end because I really don't want this to be too long of a video. So we're gonna kind of like skip to the end, but there was a time in this series where Satoko kind of came into the real world, or the world of Opus, I should say, where Nagai lives. And she kind of like walks around and sees that, oh, I forgot, this was a major plot point. How everybody kind of hated Nagai when he came into the manga because they were like, you made my life traumatic for the sake of the entertainment of other people who will read this story. And that was like a major thing for specifically Satoko. We'll stick with that. Where like Satoko was like, how, all these events of my life that, shaped my character, all these people I've seen die, you did that for the simple like factor of keeping the story entertaining. And then when she went into the real world, she kind of saw like, that's just kind of also how everyone's life is. Like, not everybody's life is sunshine and rainbows. And she saw that like her world to an extent was a reflection of Nagai's, like real world, which was very interesting. Very interesting. Like for a single volume, this manga did a lot. This manga did a lot. I'd say it did too much, honestly, but not in a bad way at all. But okay, moving to the ending of it. It's reached a very abrupt ending, and spoiler warning, of course, because like I said, this is the ending that I am jumping to. So you get this kind of panel where Nagai and basically the hero group are cornered by the mask, which is this guy here once again. They're cornered by the mask, and then it goes over to, boom, this panel, which is beautifully drawn, which is also, the back of the book. And then I'm gonna show this part in case if you want to read it yourself. Because once again, it'll just explain it way better than I kind of ever will. Hopefully it's like clear enough for you to read it. Mostly like the last bit here is kind of the more important part, if my memory serves right. But long story short, let me not say it like that because it sounds a little undermining, but the author Satoshi Kon did pass away. Like, I'm not sure exactly if it was like in the process of them working on Opus specifically, or like just during the duration of time Opus was being worked on, if my wording there makes sense. But they did pass away. And they kind of found like this final chapter like a little, or maybe, you know, sometime after his passing, and they kind of published it. So I'm gonna show some of the stuff, and it is like unfinished sketches, which is very like reading this last chapter. Let me just kind of put this here. So reading this last chapter and knowing that it was like, dang, you know, the story wasn't fully finished. And I don't mean this in a bad way at all, but more of like in a kind of poetic way, I'd say, where it was like the story wasn't finished, but they found like that last chapter. Um, and the last chapter, in my opinion, was the perfect way to end the series. And it kind of made me think of like Berserk with Kentaro Miura. Not gonna go too much on it, but with the passing of Miura and how they kind of still managed to continue the story of Berserk, and I'm pretty sure it's still going on even now. I haven't really read much chapters after his passing, I'll be very honest. Um, but it just kind of made me think of that, and I was like, dang, dude, like, just dang. You know, it brought that memory back to me. And like I said, this was my first work by Satoshi Kon. So yeah, just kind of keeping that in mind. But moving on, like, yeah, so this final chapter is unfinished. It's a very like rough, let me not say very rough, because I'm sure like certain sketches definitely look rougher. Like you could still tell what's going on. It's just more of, there isn't much like, it's not perfect, you know, as you could tell. Um, but it cuts to Satoshi Kon, like, you know, the actual author of Resonance, not of Resonance, of Opus, sorry. And they're kind of just going through like their own writer's block and how they're having a hard time coming up with the ending of Opus, the ending of Seraphim, how they're working on, you know, the anime of like Perfect Blue while working on Opus, like how they're just busy doing everything at the same time. It cuts to that, and boom, cool. And here's where it gets interesting. Let's see if I can find it right here. So the character of Opus, this gets really confusing. The character of Opus comes out of Opus and into the real world where Satoshi Kon is, and they're like having an exchange, and the main character Nagai kind of gets that same feeling of like, so this is what Satoko and the rest of them felt like when they found out they were just characters of a story, and that there's like a picture bigger than them. And I just thought like that interaction alone made the story so beautiful. And I'll show the last page of this final chapter just in case if you are curious. Here's the last page, and like I said, it's the way this ending was like, I can't find the right words to describe it. I'll be very honest. It's very hard to describe, not because of like, I don't even know how to describe it, but it was just perfect to me. Like it just fit the story so well. About like just from the beginning of it being the literal ending of a story. The ending of Resonance was at the beginning of it, and the way that the actual Opus book ends is kind of just, it goes back to the beginning of Satoshi Kon trying to create like the way of how they want to end the story, the same way that Nagai was trying to think of his way to end the story of Resonance. I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. Like I said, really mostly made this video because I like finished this and I was like, man, I just feel like talking about it. Like I didn't even let my thoughts kind of sort out yet. I just felt like talking about this. And it's not very often that a manga does that to me. Like pretty much all of the manga reviews I have on my channel invoke the same feeling, and I don't have as much manga reviews as I wish I had, if I'm being honest. But that is pretty much it for the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Let's give a quick shout out to our channel members. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Once again, this is just how I felt about Satoshi Kon's Opus. Once again, comment down if you've read it. What's your favorite Satoshi Kon work? Any that you'd recommend to me, anything like that whatsoever. Once again, be sure to follow me on Instagram at SimonSaroYT. Link for that will always be down in the description. Also, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, hit that bell so you know if it's an upload, all that good stuff. Also, I am going to be trying to start back up the gaming channel. Link for that will always also be in the description and at the end of the video. And I might put a card up maybe. The gaming channel, Simon Sabro Alt, like ALT. We are starting that back up this year. I'm excited for it. First game I'm going to be playing for it, I don't know if I want to say it because I don't know if I'm going to stick to it. But we might be playing Tekken. I'm going to just say that. We might be playing Tekken. But excited to just be starting that back up. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. This is Simon Sabro signing out. Catch you on the next one.